Artist and mapmaker Jim Mitchem of Hatteras talks to John Griffin about Outer Banks place names changing over time.
So let's get back to place names. How do you go about researching where the old names came from and how they transition into the names we use today?
Some of my maps, like I was telling you about the hand-drawn maps, I do. One of them, I have a limited edition version of the Outer Banks portion of John White's map. John White was Sir Walter Raleigh's cartographer, and he was a watercolorist. He does the very first English version map of the Outer Banks, Chesapeake Bay, and the rest of eastern North Carolina's coastline. From that map, there's so many lessons that school kids can learn nowadays. I think this map is probably one of the most important maps in North Carolina's history. If not for this map, we wouldn't have any idea the names of the Indian tribes are located, where their locations, where the villages were located. Some of the names that survive from that, very few, but still. To give you an example, the Pamlico Sound right out here was to the Indians Minso. The Albemarle Sound just north of Roanoke Island is Weopimiop. It's names like that. If you don't record them on maps, place names like that, they tend to get lost over time. So I try to record names like that as much as I can. But some of the things I've learned from studying John White's map is just amazing stuff you learn. For example, like the name Ocracoke. There's all kinds of legends of where the name started, but it actually started from John White's map. All John White had to go by were Indian names, right? There's no Kitty Hawk, there's no Elizabeth City, there's no Nag's Head at this time. They were just Indian names. Well, the first English recorded name for Ocracoke is Wakakan. And if you study maps English maps from 1585 forward, you'll see that the name Ocracoke evolves from that first English spelling, Wakakan. And you'll see different spellings over time. You'll see Wakakan, Wakakok, Akakok, and eventually Ocracoke. So it's things like that you find out when you study maps and old charts, and I try to record them as much as I can. There's other things that you learn from studying John White's map that are really interesting. That's like there was an inlet right where present-day Canadian Hole is located, in between Buxton and Avon, or Kinnicky. I like to refer to it as Kinnicky. And the name of the inlet was Chancandapeco. Where does that come from? Well, Sir Walter Raleigh's, and in this case, one of the people leading one of his expeditions, they're using an early Spanish map from the 1560s. Their pilot is Portuguese, and he has in his possession a 1560s Spanish map. And this name was already recorded on the Spanish map. So when John White does his map, he honors that map and carries that name over to this inlet that's located at Canadian Hole. The Spanish cartographer probably faced the same thing that John White did. All he had to go by were Indian names. And he's probably standing on the shores in Buxton and asking the Indians along there, what's the name of this inlet? In Spanish, of course. And the name is Chancandapeco. Things like that you learn on when you're studying old maps like this.